Hello, everyone, and welcome to the second session. This is a LinkedIn briefing. We are doing 8 out of these briefings. This is our series in AI-enabled organization transformation through intelligent OD. I know that sounds like a real mouthful, but really how we're using organization development to help us with AI and digital transformation within organizations. I'm Sylvia Baumgartner. I'm one of the consultants at Labyrinth Coaching and Consulting. And I just wanted to give us a little bit of context just to start us off. So we're doing this 8-part series, and this is number 2 of the 8 parts. And it's almost a series arc, if you like. And so we're looking at, last time we looked at the hype versus the organizational reality. So the AI hype versus the organizational reality. Today, we're going to be looking at your AI strategy is not your IT strategy. And I think that's an important piece for us to be looking at. And that really creates some awareness of what are we talking about here? How should we be thinking about it? Some of those things. We're then going to next week look at the human side of AI adoption. We'll look at in week 4, the culture as a foundation of AI. It's becoming really evident. It's hard to be doing anything with AI with not taking into account the culture. So that's almost the challenge that we have. Moving into some of the strategic framing, we're looking at leading AI through an OD lens. So using the whole diagnostic process, understanding the systemic process, working with chaos and complexity within this AI space. So I think OD is very well positioned to help with that. And then designing for sustainable impact. There's no point we're doing all of this and it's not having the impact that we need as organizations, both from a organization, a delivering on our customer promise, making or achieving the outputs and the goals that the organization has. And then finally, pilot to practice and your own roadmap. So that's almost the arc that we're going to go through. And today, as I said, we are on the second one. So it's a progressive journey of awareness to challenge, then strategic reframing, and ultimately the practical application. Today, we're going to dive a little bit deeper. As I said, we're going to have a look at AI strategy is not your IT strategy. And I start with this quote from Satya Nadella. I hope I'm saying his name correctly. He's currently the chairman and the CEO of Microsoft. And his quote is, every company is a software company. And I thought to myself originally, he probably would say that. He is, if you like, the CEO and the chairman of Microsoft. But when I reflected on this a little bit more, I asked myself, do I think this statement is true? And I realized it might be a little bit harder to read the slide that you have on the screen at the moment. But AI cannot sit in IT. And if it is sitting only in IT, it's already going to create some difficulty for you in the organization. It will create some limits in the organization. And as we go through today, I'll explain more about that. I asked myself, what did he mean by every company is a software company? And I thought, this isn't just about, are we just sticking AI in somewhere, but is your organization or is the capacity around becoming digital in place? Will it serve you? But more importantly, it's also looking at, are we a data-driven organization as well? So do we have the data at hand that enables us to do things well, to make good decisions, to make good analysis so that we can compete in the marketplace? And that's what I'm hearing him say. It's not a one solution or one piece of software is going to help you do something and you just deploy it. So for instance, if we think in the slightly olden days, and I know a lot of us are still thinking of this, how many organizations are using one system for the whole of their HR piece of work, if you like, or we might be using one CRM system. And so we think in a system, but we're not thinking about how do they all tie together and how do we use that data, and is the whole thing digital, if you like. We also talking about, ultimately, we will all be organizations that build our own applications that use advanced analytics. I cannot stress enough the advanced analytics. And finally, also provide software as a service, SaaS. So if you think about the banks have all given us a app on our telephone, and if you like, an app through the web. And so you can do online banking and all kinds of things. They built an app to actually help their business and actually reduce the number of us standing in a banking hall queue trying to do something. I have to say it took me a little bit longer to get onto the program. I walked into the bank a few months ago because I ended up with a check, a physical check in my hand. And I walked in and went, I can't believe somebody sent me a check, but what do I do with this? And the lady said, do you have internet banking, or do you have the app? I said, yes, it's right here. I pulled out my phone. She says, well, why don't you just do it on the phone? It never occurred to me the bank didn't have to get the paper check anymore. I could take a photograph. They processed it. And she just said to me, just for safety, hold on to the check for a few days. But as soon as the money's cleared in your account, just destroy the check. And I was like, I'm not even thinking like that. And even though I am in this world, I'm starting to understand it in a big way. I've done a huge amount of research in this AI space in organizations and how to make it practical. I still didn't change the way I was thinking or my mindset when I walked into the bank. And so that was a really good lesson for me. So moving on from the quote, let's actually delve in a little bit deeper. So I'm really going to be talking about two major pieces here, but the hidden cost of IT-owned AI. So if I let you just go through the slide, there are a few things over here. I want to be very clear that what I'm talking about today is in no way a criticism of IT. IT are doing their job. Their job is there to actually stabilize and help us stabilize our systems and the way that they work in the organization. They're there to help with the risk management. And if you think of some of the cybersecurity attacks we've had, part of their role is creating some of that safety. So I, at the moment, have this impression that IT keeps saying no to everything, but they're saying no because they're doing their job. And there's something about how do we as an organization deal with that, not how does IT deal with that, or how do we keep arguing more with IT. And finally, IT are also there for the infrastructure. So they're looking at how do we build everything together? How does everything talk to each other? And how does that whole system work together? But AI is not an infrastructure piece here. AI is a whole new way of working, of thinking. But at the same time, there is going to be a technical component to it. And that's where maybe IT might do a little bit more. But the stuff that happens before that are the things that we need to take care of within the organization. When I look at the hidden cost of AI, the overarching piece for me is, are we thinking about this holistically? Are we thinking about this strategically? So how we present and how we engage with the outside world so that we can compete and we can make money or deliver the service that we're promising to deliver. So let's walk through some of the consequences over here. So looking at the, I just want to make sure I'm absolutely in the right place that I want to be. So looking at the focus on the tools rather than the outcome. So I have said over here that some of the things that if we're only looking at this as a IT piece versus if we're looking at this as a whole. So the tool piece, we've got to be moving towards outcomes. So if this is what we want to achieve now, what is the best tool? I'm really aware. I had a conversation with one of my colleagues in our sister company today, and we're busy talking about, oh, we're busy using this piece of kit over here, and this is what it can do. But actually, if we switch out a little bit, we could also be doing these things, or we could add this on here. And I think to myself, we've barely started using that kit. And again, we think differently now because you're not thinking licenses. You start thinking that level of flexibility or being able to adjust is actually in our hands. And it's hard to think that when you're in a large organization or you're in a complex organization, because it was always so difficult to bring in an IT system. That's not what we're talking about here. And getting our head around that can sometimes be quite difficult. The whole point of IT is that it needs to help us actually move from keeping something safe, keeping something contained, keeping something or thinking it's reversible like we think with systems, into how does it help us shift our decision making? How does it help us move some of the things that we do? Please be aware that the cost here is not just a financial cost. The cost over here is loss of momentum. So if we start to put something in, or indeed we don't put something in, or we engage something in a, if you like, a half-hearted way, and it doesn't work well, that's how people are going to think about it. I'm thinking about the scanner that Marks and Spencer's put into their shops. They didn't have scanners like you have at Waitrose or like you have at Tesco. They decided you could scan using their phone. But they ended up with too many problems with that. So even though it was really handy, you just grabbed your phone out, got on the app, and you just started scanning as you walked around and did your shopping, and you could do everything those handheld scanners could do. Notice how the handheld scanners have outlived that I'm doing it on my phone. And some of Marks and Spencer's is still doing that, but it has not become the overarching thing like the scanners that you see in some of the other supermarkets. I'm sorry, I might not have quoted all the supermarkets that have scanners, but I don't go to that many supermarkets. The other thing to bear in mind is if we have a dip like that, we also lose the credibility with that, and we lose increase the skepticism in the organization. One of the things this makes me think about is when Amazon first came out. At the time, I was busy studying, and I remember we ordered books from Amazon. It was in the very early days when Amazon started, and they were still really a bookshop. I don't know if many of you know this, but Amazon started as a bookshop out of some person's garage. So, and look at what it is today. But anyway, we ordered these books, and then the book didn't arrive. So my peer, if you like, the lady who had ordered the book, she got hold of Amazon. She said, book didn't arrive. They said, gosh, Hillary, we are so sorry. We will dispatch another one immediately. And they did. Now 2 books arrived with Hillary. So she said, can I send one back? And they said, no, just give it to somebody. They let you have the book. There was none of this fiddling with, oh my goodness, there's a return, and oh, we can't pay you money back, and we've got to wait for the return. What Amazon did for about the first 18 months, every time something did not arrive, they just dispatched another one. So they lost money doing that. But look at the trust they built up, and the trust in very, very big part of the globe. It's not just the trust in one country. Look at how far-reaching they are. They're not totally global. They are certainly multinational. But think about what that was. It was a very clever strategy. It never occurs to me that Amazon won't deliver it, or if there's a problem, that they won't fix the problem fairly quickly and without a lot of intervention from me. I cannot say that for every other organization. The other thing to think about here, so think about the behavioral change. Amazon was actually creating a trust with us and creating an ease for us to order that. I often hear myself say, nobody from Amazon had to come to my house and teach me how to shop on Amazon. I learned that all on my own. So they almost led you into that behavioral change, and now it's just become almost the easy and the norm. What we do with AI and the way that we want to work with it is AI, if you think about it, is often helping us to do something. So we think about it as that help. But what it's also incredibly valuable to do is to actually bring the data together. So you'll remember the CEO that from Microsoft that I pointed out earlier. We said, in a way, if you don't have the data and it isn't digitized, then it's kind of that much more difficult. And so those things now also bring the benefit of what information do we have at hand? How well are we using that information? What are we putting together to actually be able to do a really good level of assessment? So it enables us to not only do tasks, but also go from, if this is what the data, what is the analysis, and therefore what are the decisions that we're making around that? Can you see the behavior, the decision piece, and the leadership alignment? That's what we're looking to do, and why AI cannot be owned just in the IT department. If anything, I would have put it more with operations as a whole than I would have just with IT. But actually, realistically, I would put it with the executive team first and foremost, and then cascading down into the whole organization. It cannot sit in one place. Remember, the whole point of spending the money, the effort, anything on the whole AI and digital integration is to actually be able to compete in the marketplace and to be able to compete in the best possible way. The real end piece for me here is, how are you servicing your customer? How are you making their life easier? How are you making it better for them? How are you delighting your customer? Because that's what's going to keep us in business. And those of you who are not directly selling to your customer, if you're in a more service industry, so I'm thinking of some government departments or the NHS or local charities, where you still have an end user, you still have an end beneficiary of your service. I'm thinking of those as customers as well. It's not always just a transaction of money. I just want to make sure I've said everything here. One of the things that's striking me as I'm starting to work with this a lot more is I do a lot of development of content. So within our Labyrinth Coaching and Consulting, I develop workshops, and I do this a lot bespoke for customers as well. But I used to, sit down, research something. It would take me a while to research. I'd give myself time to do that. I'd then look at what I was doing. I would build the whole thing out, and there we were. And to a degree, some things stayed quite stable. So every time I ran a reiteration of a workshop, I would make sure, is everything still current? What do I need to change? What examples am I using to change? Is it current? And that's how we would carry on. And for those of you who know me from the OD workshops, they were very similar for many years. When I look at it now, I realize I'm going to have to work totally differently. Number one, every time I put something out there, I think to myself, 3 weeks later, this is out of date. Is this out of date? So we're about to run a workshop in the middle of April, and I'm already going, I better quickly go over that content again and make sure what is updated now, what is no longer relevant, what has shifted, because that is the speed at which it's going. So now I'm in this conversation for myself of, how do I need to be doing this differently? So my role is now shifting slightly. The way I work, the way I think about it, the way I approach it, all of that is needing an adjustment. So on one level, it's extremely exciting. But on another level, I could be sitting here going, I don't want to change it. I know my process. I know my process has worked. It's worked for many years, but that's not the point. And that's almost where some of this shift needs to be. That change in how we are, or the way we might think about it, or the way we do something, cannot sit in IT alone. It cannot sit in a computer system or in a piece of kit. And that's the piece that's really changing. Keep thinking in this particular conversation about value that we're creating, both for our organization and for our end customer, but also the alignment and the ability to actually be able to compete and to sustain out there. So moving on from that, so the hidden cost of IT, I think I've said everything I wanted to just point out there. So moving a little bit more into, so what do leaders need to do about this? What are the things we need to be thinking? And as I said last week, I ended up saying there's some things we need to focus on. And today I'm saying these are some of the things the leaders need to focus on in terms of the wider AI in the organization, but it's different to the processes in the organization that I touched on last week. But why I mention this is every time I think about this, I think, have I got everything here, or could it be slightly wider? Or if this is apparent today, does it widen or does it become less as time goes on? As the systems build, as new things come in, how will this adjust? It won't stay stable or still. So leaders must own the clarity of purpose. I cannot tell you, again, with our sister company, ClickFlow Grow, we've been doing a lot of SaaS products. We've been doing a lot of integration for them, a lot of AI into organizations. Almost every client we've spoken to, when you ask them about their business strategy, we seem to go a little bit like trying to pin a jelly to the wall. It's not definite. It's not there. In my OD practice, I hear a lot of people say, oh, Sylvia, what happens if we don't have an organizational strategy? And the reality is a lot of organizations don't. But we need to be clear on the purpose at two levels. One is, what exactly is our organization trying to achieve? And it's easy to say, let's just have 20% growth, whatever the number is. It's easy to stick a number on it. But what does that really mean? What are we not doing anymore, and what will we start doing so that we can create the 20% growth? So that at the absolute strategic level. Strategy for me has been well thought through if there is enough information, not detail. I'm not expecting the executives to do the detail, but enough detail to enable us to make decisions on the ground. The second thing that I think is incredibly important is the clarity of purpose as to why are we using AI. Just because everyone's talking about it doesn't mean it's perfect for us, or the way that my friend did it when I spoke to her at the dinner party on Saturday is not the way it's necessarily going to work for us, just because it's working for her. There is something about the clarity of who we are and what we do as an organization, but then the clarity of, and now where does AI come in and where does it help us? So clarity of purpose at both of those levels. There was a really interesting example of this. One of the government services that do a lot of analytics, at one stage they said, we're going to put all the analysts together. It doesn't matter if they analyze very different things. And if you think of the government, they analyze, from weather to how the farming is going to what's going on in war. And it's kind of very wide. The whole sustainable piece, the whole economic piece, the whole keep going. But when they looked at it, they realized the analysts are doing pretty much the same thing. We can bring them together. But now the real juice was in how do we use them? If we've got AI helping us with some of that early analytical stuff, or it's helping us crunch through the data much, much quicker, how can we use those analysts? They are sharp. They have been around the block a number of times. They can still bring something to the table, and their level of analysis past this is the data, this is what the data says. And when they start the so what, and they start looking at the different elements of what government's looking after, now we're in a totally different place. So thinking about that clarity of purpose. So where does AI create value in our organization? Think about this. It's easy to say that, and we can all go, oh, we'll try it there, or we'll try it here. What about over here? We were working with a organization that has care homes, and they were going, oh, we'll just have a bot that answers the telephone. But they weren't really thinking in terms of how does it tie to other things, or what happens if a call gets dropped, or what happens if too many calls come in, but the humans don't get back to the inquiries, for instance. So there has to be the thought of, it's not just here, there, and everywhere, but where are we thinking about it? So some of the questions I would ask when I think about where do we create value for AI in organizations is, where are the bottlenecks caused by a deficit of speed or scale or prediction? So where are we creating bottlenecks that are because of speed or because of scale? It's a really stupid example, but it will land this very quickly. The other day, and I think I might have mentioned this last week, I had to find a boiler because our boiler broke. So I phoned a company and they didn't answer the phone. So while I was dialing the second company, that first company phoned me back and said, I just missed a call from you. That could have been helped by AI, but here's the problem. Let's say you had a bot answering the phone. And I said, I need a new boiler. This is the one I've got. Give me an idea of price. Okay, when can you come and do it? Would have been a very good bot conversation with me. But if the bot then starts taking so many calls like that, can you fulfill on the promises that it's making? So the whole system has to be tied up. There's no point you got it in one part, but then it falls down somewhere else. So not just do we have the bot doing taking care of some of that scale and bottleneck, but can we actually fulfill if all those orders come through? Do we have enough people to go and, I don't know, install boilers, for instance? I'm using that as a very basic example because I think all of us can attest to that or understand that. How much of our critical institutional data is trapped in PDFs, in emails, and in people's heads? In the olden days, and as an HR practitioner, we would have said, is the knowledge management well documented? This problem hasn't gone away. It's just really got bigger because now we're asking all institutional data, not just the information or how to do stuff, not just the knowledge management, but how much of this is not available. Because while that data isn't digitized in some way, it's very hard to integrate with AI. So how does the AI know that stuff in your organization? So that's one of the other questions to ask. Where does AI create some value? And I love this. Somebody used the expression with me, a data moat. Do you have a data moat? And I'm immediately picturing a castle with a moat around it. And I'm thinking to myself, is your data a commodity? So is it easy for your competitors to get the same data? Or do you have data that you can really use that really helps you as an organization to make strategic choices to compete in the outside world and that your competitors cannot easily create or replicate? Remember, if you're not doing it, they possibly are doing it. This is not just do we have the new kit in our organization. This is how we're going to be competing in 6 months, in 12 months, in 18 months. This is a leadership and a strategic question. Then moving on to the things that need to change in the organization and what doesn't need to change. And the minute we start to bring something in that shifts our structure, our design, the way we work, the flow of information, any of that, you are touching on the roles and touching on the processes, you're touching on the workflows. The minute you bring AI in, you're going to have to look at where does this touch, what aligns, and what do we absolutely not want to interrupt. So somebody said to us the other day, oh, we don't want an AI phoning our customers. They want the relationship with their customers throughout the process. So then don't do that. You can see sometimes you're going to say no. But whatever you do, there is going to have to be a focus on the workflow and how the workflow works within that. You can't just pop it in on the corner over here and say, let's see how it works. If it's not aligned, it's not actually going to come together. And alignment, you'll see the last block I've got over here. Alignment is a huge piece within this. In OD, I have heard myself say for 25 years, alignment is key. And so much of what goes wrong is because we haven't aligned everything up. It's almost, think about a plumbing system. If you forget to put the water pipe in the right place or connect it in the right place, you're going to flood something. It's exactly the same here. If you don't have everything linked and tied up or aligned well, you're going to have a problem somewhere. It will leak somewhere, or there's a gap somewhere, or there is a conflation of things that don't actually work well together. We know that logically, but we find it really hard to sometimes put that into the organization. I just want to see if I had covered everything off there. So when I think of AI in this space and why it can't just be your IT strategy, we're making decisions about how we're affecting our organization, our strategy, our end user customer, whatever that looks like for you. And can we compete in that external world? Can you hear how all of these are part of strategy first and foremost? And then the decision making to how do we bring this into the organization? What gets affected? Where does the money come from? It cannot sit in IT. IT can certainly help ultimately, but it does not sit with them lock, stock, and barrel, if that makes sense. All right, and so moving on to a little bit of a micro experience, I always like us to stop and go, just based on what you've heard, who really owns AI and digital transformation in your organization? I'm just going to be quiet for a few moments just to let you stop and think about that just for a second. At this stage in your own organization, is it IT that seems to be holding this? Is it certain individuals that have an interest in this? They don't necessarily sit in a particular department, but do you have some individuals that would like to hold this, would like to push this agenda in a good and maybe not always such a good way, or maybe in a slightly unaligned or untethered way? Is it with your leaders? Is it sitting with your innovation team? Is it unclear who it's sitting with? Ask yourself in your organization who should be holding the AI agenda, and what would it take to actually shift it there, or to at least create some of that awareness in your own organization? Remember, what we're talking about here is that your business is leads your organization, your strategy leads, and the IT, the AI, the anything else are merely the enablers. The one distinction I would make is that OD and HR can be very instrumental in helping the organization to actually adopt this. They can almost be the architects of that early adoption, not just necessarily the training ground or I don't know, the change people. Yes, that's important. Yes, that's needed. But what could they be doing to support this within the organization? Can you see the multi-layers we're talking about here? I hope today has made us realize that actually, if we don't start thinking about AI in our organizations at that wider level, what is it and how can it help us to actually be the organization we want to be, or what we are, if you like, aiming towards? Are our competitors going to be ahead of us? Will we fall behind? And the answer to both of those is, to some degree, yes. When exactly? Is it right now? Is it just now? Is it in a while's time? I know that was a very South African expression. Just before we end, I'm just reminding you, this is a series of 8 sessions. This was number 2 of 8. Next week, I will be looking at the human side of AI adoption. I love how I think we're going to talk about that in half an hour, but it's a big topic. But I think it would have been a miss not to have it within this space and to be speaking about that. So keep a lookout on LinkedIn. I'll keep putting it forward. And then over the next few days, we will have these videos available on our YouTube channel. We're busy working on getting that uploaded now, so that if you want to share it with colleagues or you want to refer back to it, you can. If you want to see it immediately, you can jump onto my LinkedIn and you'll be able to see it there. Just reminding everybody, once we've done the series of 8, we will have a community group. Join it through our website. The information is on the screen at the moment. And the reason I'm saying this is those will be more conversational and dialogue rather than me going, here's me just presenting. So I want those to be a community group, a dialogue community group. And so that's what we want to do to help us in the space. None of us have a crystal ball. None of us have the perfect answer. What we need to do is explore and try and see what works for your organization. That's where we're going to have to find ourselves. And that's what will end up being the way to work with this going forward, which is why the community group will become quite important for us. From my side, thank you so much for joining, especially this close to a bank holiday for those of us in England, parts of Europe, some of the Americas, those people that are observing Easter. So have a great weekend, and I will see everybody next week. Thank you very much for joining. Bye.